On a cold evening in late October, Daniel was finishing his last delivery of the day. The sky was dark and heavy with clouds. A light wind moved through the empty streets. Most people were already inside their warm homes. But Daniel was still working. He had been driving for almost 10 hours. His back hurt. His eyes felt tired. His stomach was empty because he skipped dinner to save money. Daniel worked as a delivery driver for a small bakery in town. The pay was not great, but it helped him survive. He did not complain much. He had learned to stay quiet about his pain. That night, he looked at his phone and sighed. One last order. Just one more house. The order was simple. A small pink cake. One candle. A short message written on top. For my little angel. Daniel felt something strange when he read that line. He did not know why. Maybe it was just the words. Maybe it was the cold air. But his chest felt tight for a moment. He shook his head and started the car. It's just another delivery, he told himself. The address led him to a quiet part of town. The houses there were old but clean. Soft yellow lights glowed from windows. It looked peaceful. When he stopped in front of the house, he noticed something odd. The porch light was on, but the house looked very still. No car in the driveway. No sound inside. He carefully picked up the small cake box. The pink icing looked soft and perfect. The single candle was placed gently on top. It reminded him of something. Something he tried very hard not to remember. He walked up to the door and knocked. No answer. He waited. Then he knocked again. Still nothing. Daniel looked at his phone. The delivery instructions said, "Please leave at the door." He nodded slowly. That was normal. Many people did not want face-to-face contact. But as he bent down to place the cake near the door, he noticed something taped to the wall beside it. A small white envelope. His heart skipped, because written on the front of the envelope were two simple words. To Daniel. His name. Daniel froze. He stared at the envelope for several seconds. How did they know his name? Yes, his name was on the delivery app. But customers never used it like this. They never prepared something personal. His hands suddenly felt cold. He slowly reached out and pulled the envelope off the wall. The night felt very quiet now. Too quiet. Even the wind seemed to stop. He looked around the street. No one was there. No movement. No sound. His breathing became slower. Then, with shaking fingers, he opened the envelope. Inside was a photo. The moment his eyes landed on it, the world around him disappeared. The street, the cold air, the house, everything faded. It was a picture of a little girl. She was smiling. She had bright eyes and soft brown hair. She was sitting on a hospital bed, wearing a pink sweater. Daniel's hand began to tremble. His knees felt weak. The photo slipped slightly between his fingers. Because he knew that face. He knew that smile. It was Lily, his daughter, his little girl, the one he lost 5 years ago. Daniel felt like someone had hit him in the chest. He could not breathe. His heart was racing fast, but at the same time, it felt broken. How? He whispered softly. Tears filled his eyes before he could stop them. He stared at the photo again. It was real. It was not a dream. It was the same picture taken in the hospital on her last birthday. The birthday with the small pink cake. The birthday with one candle. The birthday he arrived late to. Daniel's legs gave up. He slowly fell to his knees on the cold porch. The cake box tilted beside him, but he did not notice. Tears rolled down his face one after another. He had not cried like this in years. He had learned to hide his pain, to bury it deep, to act strong. But now the pain rushed back like a storm. Why was this here? Who put this photo inside this envelope? Who knew about Lily? His hands were shaking so badly that he almost dropped the picture. Then he noticed something else. Behind the photo, there was another folded piece of paper. Daniel swallowed hard. His heart was pounding so loudly he could hear it. He did not know if he was ready to read what was written, but he had no choice. With slow, unsteady fingers, he reached for the second paper. And just as he was about to open it, the front door slowly began to creak open behind him. Daniel turned his head. His eyes were full of tears. His heart was full of fear. And the night that started like every other night was about to change his life forever. The door opened slowly behind Daniel. But before anyone could speak, his mind had already gone back in time. Back to the hospital room. Back to the beeping machines. Back to the day his world ended. 5 years earlier, Daniel was not just a delivery driver. He was a full-time father. After his wife passed away in a car accident, Lily became his whole world. She was only 4 when her mother died. From that day, Daniel promised himself he would be both father and mother to her. He learned how to braid her hair by watching online videos. He learned how to pack her school lunch the way she liked, with the sandwich cut into small triangles. Every night, he read her bedtime stories, even when he was tired from work. Lily was a bright child. She loved drawing pictures of the sun with big smiling faces. She believed every problem in the world could be fixed with a hug. But when she turned 6, everything changed. It started with small headaches. Then she became tired all the time. Daniel thought it was just a small sickness. But the doctors found something much worse. A brain tumor. The word felt like a knife in his heart. Daniel worked 2 jobs to pay for her treatment. He worked during the day at a warehouse. At night, he delivered food. He barely slept. But he did not care. All he wanted was to save his little girl. Lily stayed in the hospital for months. Even during her pain, she smiled at him. She would say, "Daddy, don't worry. I'm strong like you." Those words broke him every time. Then came her 7th birthday. The doctors said it might be her last. Daniel promised her he would make it special. She asked for only one thing. A pink cake with 1 candle. Just like always. Simple. Sweet. He ordered the cake from a small bakery near the hospital. He told Lily he would be back before sunset with her cake. But that afternoon, his warehouse manager begged him to stay longer. They were short on workers. Daniel needed the extra money. The hospital bills were growing. He told himself he would only stay 1 extra hour. Just 1 hour. But that hour turned into 3. Then his phone battery died. When he finally rushed out and ran to the bakery, it was almost dark. He grabbed the pink cake and drove as fast as he could to the hospital. His heart was racing the entire time. He kept telling himself, "I will make it. I will make it." But when he reached the hospital room, the machines were silent. The room was too quiet. A nurse stood near the bed with tears in her eyes. Lily was lying still, her small hand resting on the blanket. The pink balloon beside her bed had slowly fallen to the floor. Daniel dropped the cake. It hit the ground, the candle rolling away across the hospital floor. He ran to her. He held her. He begged her to wake up. But she was already gone. From that day on, Daniel carried a heavy weight in his heart. He blamed himself every single day. If he had left work earlier, if he had not cared about the money, if he had arrived just 1 hour sooner, maybe she would not have felt alone. Maybe she would have seen him one last time. He stopped celebrating birthdays. He stopped talking about her. He moved to another part of the city because the hospital was too close. He sold most of her toys, but he kept one thing, a small pink hair clip she used to wear. Every night before sleeping, he held that clip in his hand. He whispered, "I'm sorry." And now, 5 years later, he was kneeling on a stranger's porch, holding her photo, the same pink sweater, the same hospital bed, the same smile. The cake beside him looked just like the one he dropped on the hospital floor years ago. His breathing became heavy. His chest felt tight. All the guilt he tried to bury came back like a storm. Why would someone send this to him? Who remembered that day? Who knew the details? And most important, did Lily say anything before she closed her eyes? Did she ask for him? Or worse, did she cry because he was not there? Daniel had lived 5 years believing his daughter's last memory was disappointment, believing she felt abandoned. That belief slowly destroyed him inside. But tonight, something was different. Someone wanted him to see this photo. Someone wanted him to remember. The door behind him was now fully open. Soft light from inside the house touched his back. A gentle voice spoke into the cold night. "Daniel, please come inside." His heart stopped for a moment, because he recognized that voice. He had heard it once before, on the worst night of his life, and whatever he was about to hear next would either break him completely or finally set him free. Daniel slowly stood up from the cold porch floor. His legs were weak. His eyes were still wet. The soft light from inside the house felt warm against his back. For a moment he was afraid to turn around. He was afraid that if he looked, the memory would disappear. Afraid that the photo in his hand was only a dream. But the voice spoke again. "Daniel, it's okay. Please come in." He turned slowly. Standing at the door was a woman in her late 50s. Her hair was gray and tied back neatly. Her eyes were kind, but red from crying. Daniel's heart skipped. He remembered her face. Not clearly, but enough. She was there that night, in the hospital. The nurse who stood near Lily's bed. The nurse who placed a hand on his shoulder when he fell apart. "You," Daniel whispered. The woman nodded softly. "My name is Margaret," she said. "I was Lily's night nurse." Daniel felt like time stopped. The world felt very small. "How did you find me?" he asked, his voice shaking. Margaret stepped aside, allowing him to enter. The house inside was quiet and simple. On the small table near the window there were photos, flowers, a soft lamp glowing beside them. Daniel stepped inside slowly. The pink cake he brought was still sitting outside. Margaret gently picked it up and placed it on the table. "It looks just like the one she asked for," she said softly. Daniel's chest tightened again. Margaret walked toward the table and picked up another photo. She handed it to him. It was Lily again, but this picture was different. In this one, Lily was smiling brightly, holding a small notebook in her hands. "What is this?" Daniel asked. Margaret took a deep breath. "On her last night, Lily could not sleep," she began. "She asked me for paper and a pen." Daniel's fingers trembled. "She said she wanted to write something important." Margaret walked to a small drawer and opened it. From inside, she pulled out a small, worn notebook. The edges were old. The cover was pink. Daniel felt his heart beat louder. "That notebook," he whispered. Margaret nodded. "She gave it to me," she said gently. "She told me to give it to you one day." Daniel froze. "She left something for me?" Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Yes." Daniel sat down slowly. His hands felt cold again. Margaret placed the notebook in his hands. He stared at it for several seconds before opening it. The first page had messy, uneven handwriting. Small letters, written by a child. "Dear Daddy," it began. Daniel's vision blurred. He wiped his eyes quickly. He forced himself to keep reading. "Dear Daddy, I know you are working very hard. Nurse Maggie told me you did not sleep last night. I am not sad. I am very proud of you." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. "I know you will bring my cake soon, but if you are late, it's okay. I know you love me." A tear fell onto the page. He tried to continue. "You are my hero. Even when you are not here, I feel you in my heart." Daniel closed his eyes tightly. For 5 years, he believed she felt alone. For 5 years, he believed she waited and felt disappointed. But she didn't. She understood. Margaret sat quietly across from him. "She kept smiling that night," Margaret said softly. "She held the balloon and told me stories about you." Daniel covered his mouth with his hand. Margaret continued. "Her last words were not about pain. They were about you." Daniel looked up slowly. She said, "Tell my daddy not to cry. I am not scared." The room felt heavy with emotion. Daniel felt something inside him break. Not in a painful way, but in a way that released something he carried too long. All the guilt, all the self-hate, all the nights he whispered, "I'm sorry." Lily never blamed him. She loved him until her last breath. Margaret reached for the pink cake box. "She wanted you to celebrate her birthday every year," Margaret said gently. She said, "Even if I am in heaven, Daddy should still eat cake." Daniel let out a broken sob. He had not bought a cake since that hospital night. He avoided bakeries, avoided candles, avoided pink. But tonight, without knowing why, he delivered one. The same color, the same candle, the same words. For my little angel. Margaret looked at him softly. I ordered that cake tonight, she said. I waited 5 years to find you. Daniel stared at her. Why? Because a promise is a promise, she replied. She asked me to give you this when the time was right. Daniel looked down at the notebook again. His daughter's small handwriting felt alive under his fingers. He realized something important. Tonight was not a coincidence. It was not random. It was not a mistake. The order that felt too familiar was meant for him, and for the first time in 5 long years, Daniel felt something he thought he would never feel again. Hope. Daniel sat still, holding the small pink notebook in his hands. The room was quiet except for the soft ticking of a clock on the wall. Margaret stood near the window, giving him space. But Daniel's mind was racing. For 5 years, he believed a painful story. He believed his daughter's last memory was waiting for him. Waiting with a small pink cake. Waiting with hope. And then slowly losing that hope. He believed she felt alone. That belief had followed him everywhere. It followed him to work. It followed him to sleep. It followed him into every quiet moment. But now that story was breaking. Slowly, page by page. Daniel opened the notebook again. There were more pages. More small letters written in Lily's uneven handwriting. On the next page, she had drawn something. It was a simple picture. A man holding a little girl's hand. Above them was a big sun with a smiley face. Under the drawing, she had written, "Me and Daddy forever." Daniel pressed his lips together, trying not to cry again. Margaret walked closer. "There is something else you need to know," she said softly. Daniel looked up. Margaret's hands were shaking slightly. She did not pass away alone. Daniel's heart stopped for a second. Margaret continued, "She was holding my hand, but she kept talking about you." Daniel swallowed hard. "She said you always came back, even when you were late, even when work was hard. She said, 'My daddy never gives up.'" Daniel closed his eyes. He had spent 5 years thinking he gave up that night, thinking he failed her. But she saw him differently. She saw his effort. She saw his love. Margaret sat across from him. "There is one more truth," she said gently. Daniel looked at her, afraid and hopeful at the same time. "That night she knew," Margaret said quietly. "Knew what?" "She knew she might not wake up again." Daniel felt a cold wave move through him. "But she was not scared," Margaret continued. "She told me, he will be okay. Daddy is stronger than he thinks." Daniel's hands trembled. Stronger? He did not feel strong. He felt broken. Margaret stood up and walked to another small shelf. She picked up a tiny glass jar. Inside the jar were folded small papers. "She made these during her last week," Margaret said. "She called them happy notes." Daniel looked confused. Margaret opened the jar and handed him one folded paper. He opened it slowly. It read, "If Daddy feels sad, tell him to look at the sky. I will be there." Another one said, "If Daddy misses me, he should help someone. That will make me smile." Daniel could not hold back his tears anymore. All this time, he believed Lily's last moments were full of pain and fear, but they were full of love, full of care for him. He thought he needed to carry guilt to honor her, but maybe he needed to carry kindness instead. Margaret looked at him with gentle eyes. "Daniel, you punished yourself for something that was never your fault." He shook his head slowly. "I should have been there," he whispered. Margaret nodded. "Yes, you wanted to be there. But Lily never measured your love by minutes." That sentence hit him deeply. He had measured everything by minutes. 3 hours late. 1 missed call. 1 empty hospital room. But Lily measured by love. And love was something he never failed to give her. Margaret reached into her pocket and took out something small. It was a hospital bracelet. The kind patients wear on their wrist. Daniel recognized it immediately. Lily's name was printed on it. Her small date of birth. Margaret placed it gently in his hand. "She asked me to keep this safe," Margaret said. "She said one day, When Daddy stops blaming himself, give it back to him. Daniel looked at the bracelet through tears. For 5 years, he believed he did not deserve to keep her things. He believed he did not deserve peace. But now, something inside him was changing. Slowly, softly. The hidden truth was not about the night she passed away. It was about the love she carried until her last breath. Margaret lit the candle on the pink cake. The small flame glowed gently in the quiet room. "She wanted you to celebrate," Margaret said softly. Daniel stared at the flame. 5 years ago, a candle rolled across a hospital floor. Tonight, a candle stood steady on a small table. He took a deep breath. For the first time in years, he did not feel crushed by the memory. He felt connected to it. Margaret looked at him. "You cannot change the past," she said, "but you can choose what story you carry." Daniel wiped his tears. For years, he carried a story of failure. Tonight, he discovered the hidden truth. He was never the father who arrived too late. He was the father who never stopped loving. And maybe that was enough. The candle flame moved gently in the quiet room. Daniel stared at it as if it was something fragile, something that could disappear at any second. Margaret sat across from him, watching carefully. "Blow it out," she said softly. Daniel shook his head. "I can't," he whispered. For 5 years, he avoided candles. The last time he saw one burning, it was on a cake that never reached his daughter's hands. Margaret leaned forward. "She wanted you to make a wish," she said. Daniel closed his eyes slowly. He did not know what to wish for. He already lost the one person he loved most. What wish could fix that? But then he remembered one of Lily's happy notes. "If Daddy feels sad, tell him to help someone." His breathing became steady. Slowly, gently, he leaned forward, and he blew out the candle. The small flame disappeared. But instead of darkness, Daniel felt something warm inside his chest. Not pain, not guilt, something softer. Margaret smiled. "There is something else," she said. Daniel looked at her. Margaret stood up and walked to another room. When she returned, she carried a small pink box. It was old and slightly worn. She placed it on the table between them. "She asked me to keep this safe," Margaret explained. She said, "Give it to Daddy when he is ready." Daniel's hands felt heavy. "Ready for what?" he asked quietly. Margaret did not answer. Instead, she gently pushed the box toward him. Daniel opened it slowly. Inside were small things: pink hair ribbon, a tiny drawing of a house, a hospital wristband copy, and at the bottom another folded letter. This one looked different. The writing was a little neater. Margaret spoke softly. "I helped her write that one. She was very tired." Daniel unfolded the letter carefully. It began, "Dear Daddy, if you are reading this, it means Nurse Maggie found you." Daniel's heart started beating faster. "I know you feel sorry, but please stop. I was never alone. I felt you every day." His hands shook as he continued. "You taught me how to be brave, so I am not scared." Daniel's tears fell again, but this time they did not feel heavy. They felt clean, like rain washing away dust. "I have one promise for you," the letter said. "You must keep living. You must keep smiling. And you must help other people who feel lonely." Daniel pressed the paper against his chest. Margaret watched quietly. "She talked about that promise many times," Margaret said gently. "She wanted you to live fully." Daniel felt something inside him move. For 5 years he was alive, but he was not living. He worked, he slept, he survived, but he did not truly live. He avoided people. He avoided happiness. He believed being happy meant forgetting her. But maybe he was wrong. Margaret stood up and walked toward a small shelf. On it were photos. One photo showed Lily smiling in the hospital bed. But next to it were other photos. Children, families, people Daniel did not know. Margaret noticed his confusion. "After Lily passed," she explained, "I started a small support group for parents who lost children." Daniel looked at her with surprise. "You did?" Margaret nodded. "Lily inspired it." She said, "If I cannot stay, maybe I can help others feel better." Daniel's chest tightened again. Even at 6 years old, his daughter was thinking about helping others. Margaret continued, "Many parents feel alone. They blame themselves. Just like you." Daniel lowered his eyes. He understood that feeling too well. Margaret looked at him with hope. "I think you can help them." Daniel looked up quickly. "Me? Yes," she said softly. "You know their pain. You understand their silence." Daniel felt fear rise inside him. He had spent years hiding from his pain. How could he face other people's pain? Margaret walked closer. "You do not have to fix anyone," she said. "You only have to sit with them. Listen to them." Daniel looked at the pink box again, at the small drawing of the house, at the letter filled with love. Maybe Lily's promise was not just about surviving. Maybe it was about turning pain into something good. Margaret gently touched his shoulder. "She believed in you," she said. Daniel took a deep breath. For the first time in years, he felt a small spark of purpose. Not guilt, not punishment, purpose. He looked at Margaret and asked quietly, "When is your next meeting?" Margaret smiled softly. "Tomorrow evening." Daniel nodded slowly. The idea scared him, but it also felt right. He folded Lily's letter carefully and placed it back in the box. He stood up from the table. The house did not feel heavy anymore. Felt warm. Before leaving, Daniel looked back at the small pink cake. He picked up a piece and tasted it. Sweet, soft, simple, just like Lily liked. As he stepped outside into the cool night air, he looked up at the sky. The clouds had moved. A few stars were shining soft. The next evening, Daniel stood outside a small community center. The building was simple. White walls, soft yellow lights inside. A small sign near the door read, "Hope Circle, you are not alone." Daniel's hands were cold, not because of the weather, but because he was afraid. For 5 years, he had kept his pain locked inside. Now he was about to sit in a room full of strangers and open that door. He almost turned around, almost walked back to his car. But then he remembered Lily's letter. "You must keep living." He took a deep breath, and he walked inside. The room was quiet. Chairs were placed in a circle. About 8 people were already sitting. Some looked down at their hands. Some stared at the floor. Some had red eyes like they had been crying. Margaret stood near the front. When she saw Daniel, she smiled softly. She did not make a big introduction. She did not point at him. She simply nodded and said, "Welcome." Daniel chose a chair near the back. He sat down quietly. For a few minutes, no one spoke. Then a man across from him began talking. "My son was 8, the man said. His voice was shaking. "I keep thinking I should have done something different." Daniel's heart tightened. He understood that sentence too well. A woman beside him spoke next. "My daughter loved music," she said. "I cannot listen to songs anymore." Daniel felt every word like it was his own. Then the room became silent again. Margaret looked around gently. "Would anyone new like to share?" she asked. Daniel's stomach felt heavy. He did not plan to speak, but something inside him pushed him forward. Slowly, he raised his hand. "My name is Daniel," he said. His voice sounded strange to him, like he had not used it in years. "My daughter's name was Lily." The room became still. No one looked away. No one judged him. They were listening. "I believed for 5 years that she felt alone when she passed," he continued. "I blamed myself every day." His voice broke, but he did not stop. "Yesterday, I learned she never blamed me." He took a deep breath. "She was proud of me." Tears filled his eyes again, but this time he did not hide them. The man across from him nodded slowly. The woman beside him wiped her tears. Daniel continued speaking. "She asked me to help others who feel lonely." The room felt warmer somehow, like something heavy had lifted. After Daniel finished, something unexpected happened. The man who spoke first leaned forward. "How did you survive 5 years of guilt?" he asked quietly. Daniel thought carefully before answering. "I did not survive," he said honestly. "I was only breathing." The room understood that answer. They all knew the difference between breathing and living. But now, the woman asked softly. Daniel looked around the circle. He saw pain, but he also saw strength. Now I want to live, he said. The words surprised even him. After the meeting ended, several people came to him. Not to give advice, not to fix him, just to thank him for speaking. One woman said, "Your daughter sounds beautiful." Daniel smiled gently. "She was," he replied. When he stepped outside the building, the night air felt fresh, different. He looked at his phone. He had 3 missed delivery requests. Normally, he would rush to accept them. Money was always tight, but tonight felt different. He sat inside his car for a moment. He thought about the small happy notes in the jar. If Daddy misses me, he should help someone. Daniel started his car. He accepted 1 delivery request. The address was for an elderly woman who often ordered small meals. He had delivered to her before. She always looked lonely. When he arrived, he did something new. Instead of leaving quickly, he smiled and asked, "How are you tonight?" The woman looked surprised. Then she smiled back. "Thank you for asking," she said softly. They talked for only 5 minutes, but those 5 minutes felt important. When Daniel returned to his car, he realized something. Helping others did not remove his pain, but it gave his pain a purpose, and purpose felt stronger than guilt. Over the next few weeks, Daniel kept attending the support group. He did not speak every time. Sometimes he only listened. Sometimes he simply sat quietly beside someone who was crying. He began writing small notes too, short messages. "You are not alone. Your love still matters." He placed them inside delivery bags for customers who seemed sad. He did not sign his name. He did not need credit. One evening, Margaret called him. "There is a new father coming tomorrow," she said. "I will be there," he replied. As he hung up the phone, he looked at the small pink hair clip he kept in his wallet. He no longer held it with guilt. He held it with gratitude. For 5 years, Daniel thought his life ended in that hospital room. And truly living again,